23rd, 1905. Paul Harris met with these three friends, Hiram Shorey and Sylvester Sheely and Gus Lohr, to explain this idea he had of this new businessman's club. But did you ever wonder what happened the next day? After these guys began to think about this idea, this thing that Paul Harris had, well, fortunately, in the basement of the Rotary headquarters office, we found an old tape. A tape recording of a message that was recorded on February the 24th, 1907. And actually, it was a phone call from Hiram Shorey to Paul Harris the next morning. Now, Hiram Shorey was an interesting guy. He always kind of wore an old brown cap like that. And Hiram had this little pair of wire glasses that he wore. And it was something like this. And Hiram, he had a phone call. And Hiram, all of a sudden, the phone rang. And we recorded the message like this. Paul, it's Hiram here. Yeah, how are you doing this morning? Well, I've been thinking a little bit about that club you suggested last night. Where'd you get the idea, Paul? Oh, you're what? You're a lonely guy, huh? Don't have too many friends there in Chicago? Yeah. Well, most lawyers don't have many friends, Paul. Have you thought about getting a dog? A dog's man's best friend. Paul, I'm calling because I've been wondering a little bit about some of those things you talked about last night, that club idea. Paul, why do you call some of the things called meetings and some are conventions and some are conferences? Oh, you'll explain that when? At the assembly. or maybe a workshop. Well, frankly, Paul, I can't quite see the difference. Don't you think that club's having an awful lot too many meetings? What's that? The more we get together, the happier. Paul, are you singing? So you want them to meet every week? What's that? Unless they make up. What's a make-up, Paul? Oh, just another meeting. And what? You're going to keep attendance records every week? Oh. And you'll give them a ribbon at the end of the year. A ribbon? Boy, that sounds like incentive, Paul. What's that? You think people do about anything to get a ribbon? Well, sure, we give ribbons at the county fair, but that's usually for the biggest hog. And you said you're going to have a speaker every week. Aren't we going to run out of speakers? And what? You mean you're never going to pay for a speaker? Paul, what kind of speakers you're going to get for free? Oh, they don't have to be good, just free. What's that, Paul? You had another idea? What's that? You want to call my wife what? You want to call her Ann? Paul, where'd you get that idea? Her name's Hortense. You think all ladies like to be called Ann? Paul, you don't know my wife. And another thing, what's that Rotary Foundation thing you kept talking about? Oh, just a fundraising scheme, huh? All you want's the money, that's all. You think guys will give money just to be called a fellow? Paul, boy, you've got a lot of, you're really full of are you going to do with all the money, Paul? Oh, just spend it on good things. That's what my wife says, Paul. Paul, you mentioned that something about youth exchange. Are we supposed to exchange our kids? I don't think my wife's going to give our kids away. What's that? Oh, it's just a vacation exchange. Well, what do we exchange them for? You mean we got to take somebody else's kids? Paul, that's a real bummer. We got a couple kids we'd exchange for anything. Would you tell me again, you just want one from each business, huh? You know, Paul, Noah had two. But you only want one. This thing is getting awful confusing to me, Paul. Paul, you mentioned another thing. Why do you want to serve chicken at every meal? What's that? Oh, that's it. Your brother-in-law owns a chicken farm. Sure, there's a lot of ways to serve chicken, but every week, Paul. And another thing, tell me about that, about singing at meetings. You think singing adds some culture? Oh, I've been working on the rail. You think that's culture, Paul? What's that? You mean you've thought of a song about Rotary? R-O-T-A-R. Paul, is that supposed to be a song? Well, it sounds rather catchy, but how many times can you spell Rotary? And one other thing, you said something about somebody was going to be called a district governor, and they'd be trained at an assembly? What's an assembly, Paul? Oh, it's a 7-day meeting, huh? You think it takes 7 days to train a district governor, huh? God did the whole world in 7 days. And Paul, you said that a committee would pick this governor guy, huh? Well, yeah, and then they'd send him to training program. But what if they picked a trained jerk, huh? You just end up with a trained jerk. And I was thinking, Paul, about that thing you said, something about an RIBI scheme for England. Do you really think that thing's necessary, Paul? You don't think it's needed, but the British like it, huh? Yeah, the British like anything's a little different, huh? Oh, sure, you're right. Not quite as bad as the French. Paul, did you really mean that you were going to let people in this club who can't speak English? How are you going to know what they're saying? You what? You just speak louder, huh? They'll understand. Okay. Paul, another thing. How many of these members supposed to know all these rules you've got? You're gonna write them in a book. Wow. How big's the book gonna be? 300 pages. What are you gonna call it? The Manual of Procedure. Paul, couldn't you make it just a little simpler? Maybe just a little booklet and just call it the ABCs of Rotary. Paul, you said something about pets. Are we all supposed to get a dog or a cat? We train them to do tricks. My wife has a canary that can whistle Dixie. Paul, you mean it's not an animal? We don't have to get a pet? What is that? You mean it's just another meeting? Oh. President-elect's training seminar, pets training. Oh, kind of like teaching old dogs new tricks. Huh? And one other thing, Paul, you were telling me about what's this club supposed to do? Just save the world and keep it a secret. No advertising, huh? Just save the world, but don't let anyone know. Paul, that's kind of strange. And Paul, about that four-way test thing you mentioned, you just kept asking questions. Where are the answers, Paul? You mean there aren't any answers? Then why do you ask the questions? Oh, I see. It's just an idea to sell plaques, huh? And then you're going to start a company, huh? You call it what? Russell Hampton, huh? That sounds pretty impressive, Paul. And about that sport coat thing, you really think all the guys want to wear the same color jacket? Oh, sure, it's a good idea. Yeah, especially for the guy who sells jackets. You know, Paul, this idea, this club has got me baffled here. I think I better think about it a little more. The whole idea just sounds complicated to me. I'll tell you, Paul, if you ever like to go to lunch, why don't you give me a call? Yeah, we'll just go to lunch and talk it over. Well, so long, Paul. I'll be talking to you, seeing you around. And so that was the end of that conversation. But we're very, very fortunate. I don't know whether you know it or not, but that was a conversation 100 years ago. But you wonder, what about today? Fortunately for us, AT&T has so much new technology that they have a heavenly connection. I've got this cell phone here. Let's see what we can do. AT&T? Yeah, yes, I'd like to, I'm calling from, well, of course, I'm calling from Salt Lake City. Yes, I'd like to speak to Paul Harris. You know, they have nice music. I believe it's harps. Oh, what a friend we have. No. I'm sorry. That's the wrong number. I'm trying Paul Harris. No, I don't want to speak to Henry VIII. Try Paul Harris's cell phone. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Oh, good. Hey, Paul. Hey, we're down here in Salt Lake City, and we've kept that old club going for over 100 years, you know. You know what? It's a surprise to you, huh? Sure, especially with some of the leaders we've got. You can hardly wait to see the next group of governors. Yeah, well, they're a motley crew, all right. And we got assistant governors, too. Yeah, dozens of them. What's that you say? You think a little more quality would yeah, better than quantity, sure. I'll make a note of that, Paul. But Paul, I really wanted to tell you, we just had this great centennial. We had a wonderful time. Well, sure, your name was used all the time. We used a picture. But by the way, Paul, did you ever have a picture taken when you were younger? You didn't what? You what? Well, we'll still use the old bald one. But sure, all the clubs had centennial projects. Well, sure, Paul, we remember your project, and it was a good one. Yeah, but most towns have public restrooms today. No, Paul, a flush toilet isn't too big of a deal today. But some clubs have planted trees. Oh, we've got great projects. We built youth centers, and we had expanded libraries and helped people and provided food and water pumps and everything. Yeah, we had some great projects, Paul. It was a great centennial. What? Oh, you had yeah, we had centennial poster contest. We had kids draw pictures. Sure. What's that? Your neighbor draws pictures. What's his name? Michelangelo? Yes, Paul. That's nice, Paul. He was good. Sure. But these are just kids, just drawing pictures, and we gave them a prize. No, we didn't hang him in the Sistine Chapel. We displayed him in Chicago, all along the wall there. Yeah, what's that? Yeah, right downtown Chicago. That's where we had the convention. Yeah, it was a really big thing. Sure, Paul, we know you lived in Chicago and that you're lonely, and it's hard to be lonely in Chicago today, Paul. I'll tell you, Paul, we celebrated all the achievements of the Polio Plus program. Yeah, you're right. No, you haven't seen many of those little kids up there anymore, coming up there, polio. No, that's because we've immunized over 2 billion children, Paul. Just because of Rotary, yeah. And you know, we had displays all over, displays and celebrations all over the world, and we wrote a book, A History of Rotary. No, Paul, you can't edit it. It's already